one of the things that I'm doing right now we are doing right now is we're kind of blowing up the mastermind space. Like we just, it makes me want to vomit, like all the mastermind.
Everybody has a mastermind.
Right. Everybody's got it. The first thing you do is you make your first 6 figures, and then you pivot right into selling other people the dream on how they can make it. When in reality, we know that 90% of them fuckers will never make it up to that.
Bringing you the biggest names and brightest minds in fitness to give you behind the scenes access and how they created some of the most profitable and sustainable businesses the industry's ever seen. Having deep conversations about the shit that most fitness entrepreneurs don't want to talk about but have to in order to create a business that'll thrive for years to come. Dropping the knowledge and tools necessary to help you follow in their footsteps and create an empire of your own. I'm Sebastiano Mangiafico. This is FitBiz Talk. Welcome back to FitBiz Talk. This is episode 6, and today we have none other than Adam Schafer, the co-founder of Mind Pump Media, along with Doug, Sal, and Justin. And he's also the co-host of the Mind Pump podcast, which is the #1 fitness podcast in all of Apple iTunes. And in this episode, Adam talks a lot about his career in the fitness industry, both as a manager of a big box gym and as part of this media conglomerate known as Mind Pump Media, which has gone on to create some great content with the use of their podcasts, a lot of these tours that they're going on, which are speaking engagements, and creating some badass programming for just about any single goal somebody has in the fitness industry. Adam goes on to talk about how they've managed to stay so relevant in the fitness industry, some of their hiring practices, and how being authentic really speaks true to what Mind Pump is and how they resonate with so many people. So here's Adam Schafer, and I hope you enjoy the show.
My first leadership role, I was 21 years old and got my first club that I had to manage and run. And I saw exactly what you just said. I saw a lot of smart fitness people that were in phenomenal shape or very well read and understood, human physiology and nutrition and biomechanics and it looked badass. And I saw that, but I didn't see a lot of business minds. I didn't see a lot of people that knew how to build a business. And I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So I mean, at 15 years old, I was already building my first little business. Right. And so I came into it more interested in actually that. I kind of fell into fitness. Like I didn't wake up one day and be like, oh, I want to be a fitness guy. I was actually bred into a sales and business type of family. Like my uncles, my grandfather, my aunts, like they were all salesmen and entrepreneurs. And so that kind of ran through my blood. And I just happened to get into like lifting in my teenage years. And I actually thought it would be a cool side gig while I finished up my degree, and kind of fell into it. And right away when I fell into the position, that's exactly what I saw. I saw a lot of smart fitness people when it came to understanding all the things that I was talking about, but really didn't understand how to build a business. And that was what I brought to 24-hour fitness that I thought was so unique, is I taught trainers how to make more money. And I taught them how to build their business and through tracking their financials and analytics. And we worked for a great company, 24-hour fitness, that did a lot of the legwork for you. Like they already, they gave you these reports that would track like how many hours you worked and how many clients that you saw and how many opportunities you had and how many of them closed and how much revenue you produced. And for a guy like me that was a numbers guy, like I was like in heaven. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I can take this information, I can unpack all of it, distill it down to the simplest form. And instead of like what happens to a lot of trainers or fitness people that are stressed about making money, is they see this big number, whether it be a big nut that you're running in a gym that you have to hit $100,000 a month, or you're just a simple person trainer who needs to make $3 to $5 grand a month to pay his bills. They see that big number and they freak out. And then they then take that and they try and sell and make money, which most of them didn't get into fitness because they want to sell. And so they get really turned off. And that's why we have such a high turnover rate in fitness, is because many of them they don't understand business very well. I don't think there's a lot of people in our space that taught it very well. Correct. And they just end up giving up and saying like, oh, fitness isn't for me, or personal training isn't for me, because I don't like sales and I couldn't make the money.
Do you feel like they don't know because they're afraid to learn, or do they feel like it's too much of a time commitment and they just rather focus on the training?
I don't think there was guys like you that entering the space 20 years ago. 20 years ago when I was entering the space, or 18, whatever it is now, when I entered the space, there wasn't anyone talking about it. Just 20 years ago in fitness, there wasn't really a lot of people making big money in it. It was just kind of happening. It was just starting to happen. I got in at the kind of the front end of you can make good money in the fitness space. Before that, it was all broke people. It was like a hobby.
Yeah.
People who worked out or were trainers, that was like a hobby, or you owned a gym. And so you also trained clients and you really weren't well off. You just kind of were paying the bills and you were following your passion, what you love to do. It didn't turn into this industry. In fact, I believe we're some of the first people to coin it as an industry. It wasn't even known as the fitness industry just 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just lacks a lot of people like yourself who are interested in the financial side of the business. Now that there's a lot of money to be made in it. So now it's starting to attract other people that are interested. And I kind of happened to be a hybrid when I came in. And it wasn't like I thought about that when I entered the space. I just had a sales fitness type of, or a sales and entrepreneur background. And I entered into a fitness space, which I knew nothing about. And I wasn't a very good trainer. I know that. Like, I was not the most educated. I was not the most experienced. I definitely wasn't the most fit. I was just this wiry, young, ambitious kid who worked really hard and I was very interested in business. And I saw that. I saw it right away that, like, wow, nobody was really talking. And I would seek out, like, and this is how I found Bedros Koulian. So I don't know how familiar you are with Bedros.
Yeah, I follow Bedros.
So Bedros was one of the first guys, and he didn't come until 3 years or so later, after I'd already been a trainer for a while, did he come on the scene, and he was out there kind of teaching trainers how to make more money. And he was presenting it that way. It was like, you want to make more money as a trainer, you want these, come to my seminars, come to this stuff. And a lot of my trainers went to it, and I would download his blogs and email stuff. And I was getting all his information because nobody else was really presenting that back then. It was completely all about how to be a better coach, how to be a better trainer, and, anatomy, physiology, nutrition. Like, that's where all the time spent was there. And nobody was really talking about, like, okay, now that you have all these skills and now that you're really good as a trainer and you get people results, how do you market and sell yourself and make more money? And he was the first person that I ever knew. And so, honestly, for a very long time, Bedros kind of owned that space. He really did. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of guys that I saw him competing with. And even today, I still think if that's what you're interested in, I think it's a really, there's a lot of opportunity in what we're doing.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of people who just get caught up in the passion of making it a hobby and never really try to scale it into making it a business.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people absolutely are passionate about it, but it's one thing to be passionate about something, and then it's another thing to, being an entrepreneur, there's already an 80% chance you're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's already building your own business. I don't care what it is, whether it's fitness or painting, or it doesn't matter, is already extremely challenging. And so if you fell into fitness because you want to help people, which is what most people do. I mean, most people that I hired and trained were, I want to help people, or, fitness changed their life. They lost 50 pounds and were forever changed. And they now want to pass that on to somebody else. But at the end of the day, most of those people still had to make an income and survive. And, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's like, okay, this is great. It's your passion. It's great. You got a killer story. It's great that you love this. That's very important if you're going to do it for a long time. But it's also important that you understand business and how to build this thing. And just nobody was teaching that. And I didn't have some magic formula. I really just kind of broke down. Like, and we tour right now, so I don't know how familiar you are with everything that we do. And
I follow you guys pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one of the things that I'm doing right now we are doing right now, is we're kind of blowing up the mastermind space. Like, we just it makes me want to vomit, like all the mastermind.
Everybody has a mastermind.
Right. Everybody's got it. The first thing you do is you make your first 6 figures, and then you pivot right into selling other people the dream on how they can make it. When in reality, we know that 90% of them fuckers will never make it up to that.
Yeah.
So I'm just not a fan of it. So what we've done is we are going around and presenting mastermind type of group work for free. And we just go to gyms. We invite as many trainers that want to show up, and we will sit down and help you with your business. And so this last one that we were just at, normally this is something actually that Sal runs the sales side of it. Danny does a lot of the training and mechanics and assessment and mobility stuff we teach. And just recently have I started to insert myself on the business side. And so I come in and I ask the audience, and I'm looking at like 50 trainers, and a lot of them are managers. Some of them have been in the business for 4 or 5 years. Some of them are brand new, 3 months in. And I asked them, how many of you know your closing percentage? 0 hands come up.
Wow.
Nobody. And I was like, man, this is crazy to me. Like,
Probably the most important metric as a trainer.
right. Right. Like you mean to tell me you don't know how many, and then, I was like, here you go. I'm going to give you guys some gold right now that should completely change how you run your business just with this real simple thing. I was like, start today tracking your appointments. So every trainer has what they call, fitness assessments or free appointments or the opportunities to sell somebody on personal training, which most gyms have this already integrated. Most private trainers know to do this, which is your goal is to get somebody off the street or get somebody from in the gym, put them in front of you, do an assessment on them, present your value, what you can provide for them, and then close them on a personal training package with you. I mean, that is your business. That is exactly how you're going to survive as a personal trainer. And here I am talking to this audience of trainers, and this always happens when I ask this question. Nobody fucking raises their hand and says they know. And it just blows my mind that they haven't been taught this, when to me, that's the fundamentals of them being successful as a personal trainer. So I tell this group that, okay, what I want you to start doing is just start tracking. Start tracking how many people you saw this month, how many of those people, or how many people, first of all, that you booked, right? So how many people did you try to see? Because we also know that about 50 to 60% of those people only show up. So half right out the gates don't show up if you're hustling. So track how many people you try to book an appointment, track how many of them show up to the appointment, track how many of those that you actually sell them on something, and then track the dollar amount that you sell. So what the size of the contract. That will give you your personal closing percentage. And now you can set a goal for yourself that, hey, I want to make $10,000 a month. Okay, well, if you want to make $10,000 a month, we can distill that all the way down to how many people do you need to talk to a day? That's simple.
Yeah.
Instead of getting all hung up in this and getting scared about, oh, I don't know what to say when they say no, and how do I tell them this price? Or if they tell me they don't, like, fucking don't even go there yet. Like, you're not even ready to start getting better as a salesman or talk about overcoming objections. How about just understanding your business and what you convert and what kind of work you need to put in to even produce the revenue you want to make? And so that's how I used to start all my staff. So I had the opportunity to probably manage, I don't know, over the course of 10 years, hundreds of trainers. And every time I onboarded somebody new, this is what I taught. Now, this wasn't company wide. This was just what I brought to the table. It was like, this was what I was good at. I could teach people how to break that down. And then I could teach and motivate trainers to focus on that part. So I could figure out your show percentage, your closing percentage, your average dollar amount, which for those that are listening to this right now and that are trying to figure that out and track it now, the average, like for the company that I work for, would be, a 55 to 60% show rate, 25% close rate, and a $500 average sell. Now that's the average, which is the worst trainers in the company, the best trainers all averaged out. Someone like myself, most of my career, I averaged like an 80% show up rate, and I closed at close to 80% of all clients, and more like a $1,500 package. Now, I would like to think that I'm probably a little more talented than the brand new rookie trainer. So you can't expect to come out the gates there, but that's your goal, is to work towards not having to book as many people to make as much money. And so I would teach this to these trainers at the very beginning. And then it gave me the tools on where to focus. Like, oh, wow, look at, you really suck at getting people to show up. What does that mean? I wouldn't really say that, but we would highlight that they're not very good at showing. Well, now that gives me an area to develop them in, so I can work on how they present the free appointment. Like, if you're having a hard time getting someone to show up to you for a free appointment, there's a disconnect somewhere. And then I would coach that up. If you are great at getting them to show up, but then you're just terrible at a close percentage, I know that you're missing somewhere with your presentation, right? So, and if I saw that your average dollar amount was extremely low, I knew that you were scared to ask for a lot of money. And so once you kind of understand, and this is me leading you, if you were by yourself, like, you should know this stuff anyways, and then you should know where you need to work on to become a better trainer. And just nobody talks about that shit,
Yeah, I mean, the financials usually get left out and the metrics get left out.
Yeah, and we see this on even bigger scales. Like you talk about even, some of the names of the people that you've already interviewed and these other businesses that are out there. Like there's a lot of my peers in my space in relation to podcasting and in program sales on or digital marketing, whatever. And they don't fully understand and grasp business and don't know how to scale a business, which we all kind of saw that when we got into this. We just saw the opportunity. It's like, man, we know we're good trainers, but we're not like, there's nothing extra special about any of us three guys. Like we're so much better than everybody else. It's just, there was a lot of opportunity in this space. We saw it, and kind of took advantage of it. And now we're in the middle of scaling this thing to something much greater than what it was just 3-4 years ago.
So being a successful manager at 24 Hour Fitness, what made you make that transition into going to Mind Pump and going that entrepreneurial route?
Well, I mean, I was already doing, before even 24 Hour Fitness, I was an entrepreneur at heart. So I had started, I mean, as a 15-year-old A&J lawn mowing service, right? So I had I used to have my mom drop us off and push us around the rich neighborhoods, and I would knock on doors. I had flyers and business cards made. And I come from not having a lot. So we were no stranger to food stamps and being evicted from homes and not paying the electric bill. And so we didn't have very much growing up. And so I wanted things. And if I wanted things, I had to figure out how to do that myself. So I've always had that streak in me. And I didn't leapfrog from 24 Hour Fitness to right into Mind Pump. I actually took a 3-year hiatus where I helped start 2 of the first medical marijuana clubs in the Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was totally not in, like, I was an anti-marijuana guy. I wasn't a smoker or any of that shit. Like I wasn't into that at all. But I had a client who saw the way that I ran my gym and the way that I led people. And he offered me a ridiculous amount of money to come and manage his facilities. And I remember being like, I told him no originally. And then he met with me a second time and he slid over a piece of paper and promised.
Made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
It's exactly what he did. He made me a number. And I said, oh, I literally that night I went home and I went to Barnes and Noble and just bought all these marijuana books and began reading. Cause at that point I didn't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know anything about the space or the plant. But I did see the writing on the wall as far as what was going on with marijuana in California, and being a business guy and an entrepreneur by heart, I saw the writing on the wall and thought, okay, I wouldn't mind getting my hands involved in this somehow because I see the opportunity financially. And at that time in my life, I'm extremely driven by money still. I'm still chasing a dollar amount that I wanted to make and that I needed to be at to say that, oh, this is where happiness is for me. It wasn't until I reached that, surpassed that I realized that I was incomplete. That was when I realized I woke up one day with more money in my pocket than I knew what to do with. But I was also probably the most unhappy I'd ever been. And that was kind of like the wake up call that this isn't for me. I don't want to be in marijuana for the rest of my life. No matter how much I think it could be good for a lot of people, it just wasn't fulfilling for me. And
Yeah.
I miss fitness. And so I came back into fitness at the same time. Like what drew me actually to Sal was he was doing a bunch of research on marijuana for his mother-in-law who was dying of cancer. And him and I knew of each other, like, because we were top performers at 24 Hour Fitness, but we never really hung out. We didn't meet each other. We just knew of each other because you could see, like, the company used to have rankings of like top people. And so you get used to seeing like the top guys. If you're a top guy or top girl all the time, like you recognize names. And we had mutual friends. And so they connected us, or we got connected through Facebook and started talking about actually marijuana first. And while we're talking about that, I'm telling him I'm leaving the industry and I'm moving back into fitness because I miss it. And I was planning on building an e-commerce site and a digital marketing business. So I wanted to get into social media. I saw the writing on the wall with what was going with that. I saw that there was lots of opportunity on social media platforms. The people I saw providing the most influence and information on these platforms were idiots for the most part. And I saw an opportunity to present myself as real, authentic, truth, and I began building my Instagram. So I turned it on with that intention. And so while I'm building my Instagram, Sal was actually already coupled up with Doug, who's our producer, and Doug and him were writing the first MAPS Anabolic program. And Justin used to be a trainer for me for many years and have always remained friends. And I was helping him with building an app on the side while I was still doing the marijuana thing. And then I left the marijuana just to work on the social media thing. And when Sal and I connected over Facebook and we started sharing ideas and talking about what we are currently in, and we just started to really connect. And I realized, like, dude, this guy's my people for sure. And I said, you know what? I want you to meet my buddy, Justin. Like, we need to get together. And he's like, well, I want to introduce you to my buddy, Doug. Like, Doug's really the man behind a lot of this stuff that I'm creating. Like, he's the one that creates all the video stuff. And I write all the content. He produces all of it. Let's all get together. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we all get together at my house, and it was absolute fire the first time we all sat down. Like, everybody just hit it off instantly. I think we all had so much experience in the space that we were all kind of fed up with the same bullshit. We all had a ton of integrity. We all had a lot of fun in that conversation. And Doug pipes in one minute and he goes, man, we should put this on a podcast. And we all kind of looked at each other like, I don't fucking how to do a podcast. Like, we were like clueless I knew of podcasts and I'd listened to a few of them and I'd read on what the podcasting space was doing. So right away I was intrigued, but I'm like, I don't know how to start one. I don't have any equipment. And Doug's like, I got everything. He's like, I got the equipment. We could totally do one this weekend if you guys want to. And we're like, really?
He was ready. He was ready.
Yeah, he was ready to go. And so that was like a hobby for him. All the mics and the cameras. Like, he's always been geeked out on all that stuff. And so he already had a lot of it. And he's like, well, let's all get together and let's just do this. And so we did. We went to the first time we were at my house, and then the following times after that we were recording at a Doug's house. But it really was, as Doug says, a labor of love. I mean, we didn't sit down and like conspire and be like, okay, we're going to be millionaires and this is what we're going to do and we're going to build this massive business. It was like, hey, we have a lot of really cool information to present. I would have loved to have found a podcast presenting this information when I was in my 20s. If it would have existed, I would have just eaten it up because it would have entertained me. And on top of that, it would have dropped knowledge on me. Like, I would have loved that. And so it was kind of scratching our own itch. And let's just see if people receive it the same way that I probably would have received it. And it did. It just started to grow. And it was slow. Everybody thinks that like Mind Pump blew over a knife. It did not at all. It's been almost 5 years of the same gradual day over day, night over night, week over week, month over month, and year over year growth. But it grew organically. We didn't start pumping money into advertising and even build a marketing team until just last year. Up until that point, it was just word of mouth. People were sharing the podcast, and we went from a couple downloads to hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, and then eventually millions. So that was kind of the progression of it. And it seems like it feels sometimes like overnight, but not for all of us that were in it the entire time.
Hustling the whole time.
Yeah, it's been a grind since day one,
So at what point did you guys finally sit together and kind of lay out a plan of here's what we exactly want this to be?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we never even sat down and said like, okay, you're the CEO, you're CEO, you're CFO, you're CMO. Like, we later on had to structure that, like way down the road. Like, we didn't sit down and like, we weren't very formal about anything. Again, this was like a labor of love for us. It was not like this intention of, oh, we're going to get rich off it. Yes, we all have ambition. Yes, we all wanted to grow it. Yes, we all had dreams of what it was, but we all had other businesses and were successful outside of Mind Pump. So it wasn't like we needed to make money. So we didn't put that kind of pressure on it, like to where we were holding each other accountable and structured. It's way more structured today because of the staff. I mean, now we're between contractors and employees. We have so many people working in and out of Mind Pump every single day that it does require a lot more structure and organization. But that really didn't come in until probably just a year ago, I would say. Did we really start to formalize like, okay, Justin, you're in charge of all video editing teams. So all videographers, designers, they're going to be reporting to you. Sal, you're overseeing the whole marketing side. So all the marketing team has to make sure they run everything by you. You have to approve it. Doug, you're handling all the financials in the background. So that didn't happen until like it had to happen, till the business was so big that it got to a point where we reached a plateau because we lacked organization. And that was when we became really organized and way more methodical about our approach as the business. Up until that point, we let it grow very organically. In fact, I remember I was really frustrated with the guys because, of course, I was the one who could walk away from his job. I didn't have a family that I had to support. And they all wanted to wait until they were making the same income they're used to making, which is good fucking money for these three guys. And so they were all like, I don't want to commit to this thing until we've proven this thing is producing this much money for each of us. And I was like, fuck it, let's go now.
Yeah.
Let's go now when it's scary. I want to go now when it's scary, when we're all, our backs are against the wall and we have to figure it out. And we didn't. And we waited until it was producing enough revenue to where everybody could walk away from everything. But the nice part about that is we've actually found a way to build this thing on, we only come in the studio from 9 to 2 every day. It's about what our hours look like, 9 to 2, Monday through Friday. And we all work when we get home. Everybody has stuff that they're constantly managing or creating on the outside of the actual hours we work in here. But that's really what our shifts look like for a very long time, was just a 9 to 2. And then it got to a point where we hit this plateau where, okay, just the hustle was getting us to a certain dollar amount. And if we were going to break through that, we were going to have to get way more strategic and streamline things a lot better. And that was one of the first big hurdles. Was, okay, we love this. It's making us all good money. Now it's time. Like, if we really truly believe this thing can be massive, we got to start treating it like that. And that was, Doug and I are probably the two biggest readers when it comes to especially business stuff. So him and I spent a lot of time. In fact, him, myself, and Katrina meet on a very regular basis where we are forecasting the business. So, Justin and Sal are handling so much internal work with staff and contractors and people and content that they really oversee a lot of that. And Doug and I probably spend the most time on visionary work and like laying out quarterly plans and setting our rocks and our non-negotiables and all that core values and all that stuff has really been built by the time that him and I spend, because we found that if we just kept doing this shooting from the hip shit, this thing isn't going to scale to be a massive company like we all want it to be. And then we began, and then we've been, I think, scaling up, rework, traction. What other great books did we make our way through and really started to implement a lot of the systems in there? Like we've been in the process of implementing EOS systems for the last almost year and a half now. And in fact, we just interviewed a consultant to potentially come in and hire somebody full-time to come in and actually help us even get tighter on all of our systems. And we're kind of like on the fence right now. Like, do we want it right now? Do we think we can continue to scale the way we're going? Like, we're all pretty happy with the rated scaling. Like, maybe we wait till it slows down a little bit. And that's kind of the internal debate right now is, do we bring somebody in right now to even tighten up the screws even more?
Yeah. And do you guys have set strategy sessions that you follow, or is it kind of just rolling? And
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so Mind Pump went from being completely disorganized from the hip and, just whatever, to a lot more. Like, you can count on every Sunday, there's an interview episode. Every Wednesday, there's a topic focus episode. The other 3 days a week are always the Q&A episodes. When we do topic focused episodes, we plan what that topic is. We outline what that topic is. Then on the back end from the marketing team, blogs are going out to support that. So we have every single day, and I don't know how much of this you know, but there's 5 podcasts that go out a week. There's 3 to 5 YouTubes that go out every single week. There's 3 to 5 blogs that go out every single week. There's a Friday fitness tip that goes out on, there's a weekly newsletter. There is a monthly newsletter that goes out. So we're constantly touching our audience. And then we have always, at all times, you have all Facebook ads that are constantly driving leads in on the back end. So we have Maps Fitness Products, which is, it's almost a standalone business by itself, which is completely ran from our marketing team. And that's all of our email marketing, our Facebook ads, and all our Instagram ads. It's completely separate from Mind Pump Podcast. So when we talk on the podcast, there's sales, there's advertising, there's things that are happening on the email marketing side to a whole nother audience that the podcast audience doesn't even know about.
Wow.
And both directions, right? So they're separate entities. And the same thing goes for YouTube. That wasn't something we actually realized until it grew to the size it is now. That and this was a learning lesson. So for those that are trying to build something similar, YouTube is its own monster, podcasting is its own monster, and email marketing and Facebook marketing and Instagram are all separate entities. They all work under the umbrella of Mind Pump Media, but they really are their own business. And there's a lot less crossover than you would think. Sure, we have our we have our diehard, 5,000 people. There's like a diehard group of 5,000 people that will listen to every interview that I do on other people's podcasts, that will consume every YouTube, every blog, but for most people, it's impossible to consume all that content. So you tend to gravitate towards whatever platform you like the best or whatever you like that we're delivering on there. So we have people that purely just read the blogs and don't listen to the podcast and don't follow the YouTube. And then we have a bunch of people that just follow the YouTube and didn't even know we have a podcast. So, we treat each of the platforms as individual businesses, and we try not to muddy up too much social. So if you notice too, all of our social is like social. We try and keep it very playful and fun and who we are and our personalities. You rarely ever, if ever, will see us marketing or trying to sell you on on any of our social media platforms. Even our Facebook ads, we are marketing to you to give you something for free. So we don't try and sell anything. So everything that we do is to just generate leads and people listening or paying attention to us. On the back end is where we convert, is by
and you're playing the long game.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people in our space make. They build an audience through showing their ass or doing cool things on their Instagram or YouTube because they're goofy, and then they get enough traction of people, and then they start trying to push and market and sell the fuck, and it's very short-lived. Maybe you get an initial wave that comes through and you buy people, but eventually the people that are following you on social media, they're there. It's a social platform. They're not there to be advertised to every other day or every other story as you trying to push a product on them. Like even all of our advertising and sponsorship. So a good portion of revenue that we drive is through our marketing and advertising and our partnerships in our contracts. This is something that we do that's unique that no other podcasts do. And we have to fight our partners at the beginning, but we're now in a position where we can tell people fuck or walk. And we tell them, no, we won't post. We don't post your product on Instagram. We post it, it's because we really want to do it. Because one of us is using it and I happen to have my phone out and it's like whatever. But we will not write in the contract that we will do so many posts or mentions like like you sponsor the podcast and you get a commercial in there and that's it. The rest of our platforms we use to interact with our audience, provide good information. We don't want to muddy it up with a bunch of advertising and selling. And so we made that deal early on. We agreed before we even took our first advertising or sponsor on that we would not do that. And we've stuck to that to this day. And I think it's paid off big time. I think people appreciate it. It's allowed us to turn down a lot of shitty brands and wait for the companies that we really want to do work with. It comes off more real and authentic. So it's not like every day I'm posting about some brand I'm using so I can try and sell you a product like on my social. I think that's terrible. And I think people are becoming savvy to that already. And those that are listening that are trying to emulate a similar type business, I think if you want to be ahead of the game, you want to figure this out sooner before everybody else does, because that shit's going to die really quick. People are I just called out today. I didn't call him out by name, but called out one of the men's physique champions because he just signed with a new supplement company. And his first post is like, people have been DMing me and asking me what my supplement stack is. And then he lists off, no joke, like 9 different things that he's taking throughout the day. And it's all from this new supplement company. I'm like, please tell me you guys know that this is not what made him into what he is today. What made him this incredible physique is his discipline, his consistency, his diet, and his steroids. Like that is what built this guy. And not to take anything from him, but to think that this $500 stack of bullshit supplements is what's getting these people these results is just absurd. So, and I think people are becoming more and more aware of that. And so if you're a fitness person listening to this podcast right now, trying to build a fitness business, the best piece of advice I can give you is don't go down that same path following these knuckleheads, because they're all going to be old news in about 2 or 3 years.
A lot of your podcast is great because you guys are completely honest with what you're doing. And though you might have a sponsor, doesn't mean you all agree, and you actually would, I'm not going to say bash them, but disagree on them.
Oh yeah, we've gotten shit for that too. Don't get me wrong. I remember the first time that I said Four Sigmatic tastes like shit. I remember that Sal loves Four. He loves them. He loves the brand, and it is a great company. I mean, as far as all the efficacy of the dosage in all of the products that they sell, he uses them on a very regular basis, and I just don't, because I don't like the taste of it. And he teases me all the time about it. But that was part of the deal with our brands also, is like, we are going to talk about it. And if one of us doesn't like it and doesn't use it, it's just that you're just going to have to deal with that. And I remember brands at the very beginning, like having a hard time with that. But once we started converting at numbers that like no brand has seen, like with any other podcast, like we have like companies like that we share with Joe Rogan, who's a fucking billion times bigger than we are, right? He's like the Oprah of podcasting.
Yeah.
But we convert at a higher rate for sponsors that he has and we have. We share some of the same sponsors, and we convert at way higher numbers. And that's just because we're real and authentic about it. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to find a product that all of us always, all three use every single day. It's just not going to happen. And we're not going to talk like it does, because it's not real. And I think people appreciate that. And I think that we're in a time now, especially in the evolution of podcasting and long form conversations like this one, that people want more truth, more real. And it's getting harder and harder for the charlatans and the fakes to promote bullshit like that, because you get found out really quick in a forum like this, where you have to talk for an hour and a half. It's real easy to bullshit a 15-second ad, but talk to me for an hour and a half and ask me the right questions, and you'll find out real quick, like, oh yeah, like, you're Adam, I see you're sponsored by Four Sigmatic. Tell me how you use it. And then I go, get all fucking, I don't know what to say, And
yeah.
So I just think that we're heading into this time where people are going to have to be more real and more truthful. It's going to force it to be. And we see that with, the last presidency, just with the way Trump ran things. Like, that was the first time we'd seen a president utilize Twitter and Facebook. And sure, we all talk shit about him and make fun of him for doing, but it was fucking brilliant.
It's still working.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Orlando, and there's 100,000 people waiting outside in the rain to go see him at a rally.
Right. I mean, it's definitely working. And this is just the beginning. I mean, going forward, and I have a prediction that one of our next presidents in the next, I think, 8 to 12 years is going to be like The Rock. It's going to be somebody who's just like fucking super famous from social media, because, he's got, what is The Rock at, like 50 million or something people?
Yeah.
Right? He's got 50 million people that he's impacting that probably all would agree they love him. And I bet you there's a good portion of those people that would just vote for him because of that. So
he's already thrown that carrot out there.
I think it's coming, dude. That's my call. That's why I used it, even threw his name out there. Like, I really think that he's building his character up. Like, when you see a lot of the things that he's doing, I'm like, this guy is getting ready to dabble into like politics, dude. It's coming. Like, just wait. It's definitely going to, I mean, Arnold laid the blueprint for all these dudes.
Yeah.
And Trump is laying the blueprint for how to do it with social. And so that's kind of the future, is this, upfront, real, who you are. And that is what's going to sell. And that's what's going to be successful. And everybody else that's trying to run the gimmick, and they're going to have a real hard time taking off.
So taking a step back from, let's say, disagreeing on sponsors amongst the group, being in a partnership with 3 other people has to be very difficult, I have to imagine. So how difficult is that? There's a lot of heads in the room coming up with ideas.
If this happened when we were all 25, it would have already blown up for sure. There's the size of all of our egos would have for sure just exploded onto each other. And we would have tore into each other, disagreed, and it would have never worked. I think that because all of us are heading into our 40s and Doug 50s, like, I think we're at a place in our life where we don't need to be the guy. I don't, and even like I told you, like nobody sat down and said like, oh, you're officially the CEO, you're the CMO, you're the CFO. Like no, we didn't even, just everyone kind of like actually naturally kind of fell into those roles. Because of that, it's what made it work. Now, does that mean we don't argue? Fuck yeah, we argue. We argue all the time, man. But what's rad about arguing with these three guys is that they 100%, and I've been in situations with partners that just businesses that did not work because of partnerships, and working in facilities where I had a co-manager or somebody at the equal level of me. And I've definitely dealt with pain in the ass situation. And probably because I dealt with all that, I think I'm so appreciative of what we have created here. You really have three other men that I work with that care so much about the success of the business and don't give a fuck about being right and being the man, that when we have it out and we argue about something, it's not like who's right or wrong. It's like what serves the business better. And we encourage that passion. So if I come in one day and I'm like, hey, I'm taking us this direction, we're going to market like this now, we're going to start this. And Sal goes, no, I disagree. I do not. I think that's going to turn our audience. We'll get into it right there.
Yeah.
And we'll go, and it'll get loud and it'll get back and forth and normally Justin and Doug are kind of like the observers. They'll kind of it's typically Sal and I that are probably more passionate about arguing over these things.
Mm-hmm.
But what's cool is they'll sit there and they'll kind of let it all happen out. And then once we settle down, then Doug or Justin will kind of chime in and they'll put their 2 cents in. And then once they've put their 2 cents in, then we kind of just agree on taking one direction. Both guys made a really good case. Maybe the other two guys side with one. Maybe it's a split down the middle. And then we just kind of like coin flip, like, hey, well, let's agree this. Let's give it a try. If we get any sort of revolt or you hear this from our audience or someone says this, we pull the plug, we go the other direction. But no matter what decision that we decide to do, we are all 100% bought into it and we all 100% own it. So even if I'm the guy who says, no, I don't want to do that, and we do Sal's idea, if Sal's idea fails, I'm not the first one standing there going like, I told you that was a stupid idea. And no one has to say anything. It's just redirect.
Yeah.
And we move on, and we don't keep tallies and say, you were right, I was right, you were wrong, I was wrong. It's not like that, because it's always about what we say? We're like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm glad we figured that out and I was wrong and you were right. I'm glad we figured that out. Like that's how that conversation sounds. No matter who was wrong or right, we're glad we got to the bottom of it and we're now moving in the right direction. Hopefully we made the right call right away and we didn't waste any time of having to backtrack and shift different directions, but nobody holds it over each other of you were right or you were wrong. And because of that, it always works, dude. And because we all encourage this, like being vocal, like absolutely, if something is on your mind, that
talk about it.
Yes, you talk about it. And don't be afraid to talk. This is something we're trying to teach our staff. Like for sure, the core four, the owners, all 100% get this. The next biggest challenge of scaling this thing to even something greater is all the other leaders that we're developing underneath us right now is actually teaching them. And that's the hardest thing, because we have a very young team, right? We have people as young as 17 working with us all the way up to our age and everything in between. And, we're trying to teach them to be that way. And it can be very intimidating with these four owners to come in and challenge one of us. And we were just having this conversation with Rachel the other day, because she handles a lot of the social and the interaction with our partnerships. And if, one of us does something, for example, I'll use something that bothers her sometimes. Sal is notorious for his off the wall memes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we'll do a post for, like, let's say Butcher Box or like a company that we work with, and he'll put in a story. And then right afterwards, it'll be like an anal picture with like, and so she's like, she'll kind of vent and be like, I just don't think that's really smart and professional of us. I know that's our brand and we go all over the place, but if we're presenting another brand, maybe we shouldn't. And like what we all look at her and say is like, fucking say something. If you don't like that and you disagree with it, like you own that side of the house. Like you are in charge of, you're the one who's going to have to put out the fire, talk to the partnership, calm them down about it, tell them it's going to be okay. They may sign the contract again. They may not because of that. Like, you're the one dealing with all that. And if you feel passionate at that, fucking bring it. You come into our next meeting when we all meet every Monday, and you tell Sal, you say, hey, I think that's really stupid. I don't think that's a good idea. You do that. And then bring your case. tell him why and explain it to him. What's awesome about all of us is if you bring it at us like that, and we may go back and forth with you, but if you bring a legitimate case, we're all very logical about things and we're very open-minded that we'll go, okay, I see where you're coming from. I respect that. Won't do that again. So that's probably the greatest challenge right now is not my partners. We've way beyond that hurdle. If there was ever even a hurdle of, the four of us working together, it's now how do we instill that same attitude and values into the rest of our team? Because now the four of us, we're all so busy in our own silos that I don't have time to fuck with Sal. Like Sal is writing so much content, overseeing so much marketing shit that there's actually a lot of things you'd be surprised that we all don't even communicate with, because everyone's got a whole department that they're running and handling that, when we all get together for our meeting and we meet, because we meet daily, 4 owners meet daily, then we meet with the rest of the staff on Mondays, and we have the all staff meeting where we've got everybody every other week. And so when we meet with each other, we're just kind of downloading each other on what's going on. Like, hey, this is what I got going on with Taylor right now. Oh, this is what's going on with Rachel. This is what Enzo's doing. Like, okay, well, I've got Eli and Danny. They're working over here on this. And so everyone is overseeing so many different moving parts that we never really get in a way. Every once in a while, Justin, myself, or Sal will bring something and be like, hey, we're doing this. And then one of the guys will challenge it. And I don't know if that's a good idea. For example, we were talking about onboarding somebody right now. We're looking to actually start to integrate a vlog. And I'm the one who's been pushing back on starting a vlog for a very long time, because I know how much money we've dumped into the YouTube channel and it's non-profitable for us. It's 3 years in. It cost us more money to produce the content that we put out there for free than what it generates in revenue for us, even at 250,000 followers. So, wow. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think you see a bunch of followers and think, oh, they must be balling from YouTube. Like, no, YouTube is a fucking money pit, and it's been a money pit for 3 years. So I'm very resistant on hiring a person that we're going to pay a salary just to literally vlog and take pictures for us, even though I respect what Taylor sees and the ability for us to create a new audience that likes the vlog form, which will then be a great way to integrate more partnerships through there, which then could produce more revenue, and it could get more ad revenue for another YouTube channel. So I see the value in that. I get it, but I also know it's going to be a long time. Like literally,
yeah, it's going to take some time to roll that out.
Right. And so, one guy Taylor will bring in, hey, I want to hire this kid. This is what we want to do. Sal and Justin right away jump on, be like, yeah, great, let's do it. And then you have me. No, I don't want to do it. This is why I don't want to do it. I'd rather do this. Let's hire this kid to do a little one-off projects. Let's see if he produces what we're thinking. Let's put a few out there. Let's see if it takes off. Then we could sit down and talk about what we should project this to take, how long, and how much revenue it's going to cost us just to build before it even breaks zero. And so that's the type of stuff. I mean, we have those debates and arguments all the time, but everybody respects everybody for their opinion, and everybody has these different strengths. I mean, we're so diverse. Like if we're talking about banking and CPA and all of our back end work, like nobody's going to argue with Doug. Like that's Doug's side of the house and his baby. And even though we all have opinions and we might object to something, when Doug puts his foot down and says like, no, this is what I think we should do, even if we disagree, we'll be like, okay, well, let's do your way, Doug, first. And because we trust that he knows more. Same thing goes with Sal, like with content. Like Sal, out of all of us, has the silver tongue. He writes better than anybody else like that. So if marketing material is going out and one of us, like I might say, oh yeah, I approve, that's good. But then Sal goes, no, I don't want to present us that way. Like if he puts his foot down in a certain area, then we're not gonna argue. I'm more the numbers guy. Like I'm constantly in our numbers and revenue. Like for example, hiring somebody and bringing somebody on just because the business is making all kinds of money. I'm also a tight ass with that stuff. No,
yeah, you got to run lean.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, just because we have the money to give this kid a salary and try something out, it's a waste of money to me right now, and I'd much rather allocate those funds somewhere else. So, and normally, if I stand my ground about that, everybody kind of respects me as the numbers guy and goes like, okay, all right, what do you think, Adam? And then I'll be like, well, let's try this. And then we all agree. So that's kind of how the business has just naturally happened, is everybody's kind of fallen into their natural position. And as it's scaled and it's grown, they've their responsibility and people underneath them has grown, and they've just They've just naturally fallen into it. But now it's trying to refine that, like an well-oiled machine is like being more systematic. And, we've just recently, like the meetings I was telling you about, like it's gotten to a point where we have that many people working with us that we have to like, okay, you need to be responsible for these 3 to 5 people. They download you information on Mondays. When you meet with me on Wednesdays, then you download me on all that information, and then we can all to collectively talk. And so it's gotten to that point where we've had to be more structured. And then you have, like I said, Doug and I are like talking about like big picture, like are we on pace for our quarterly goal that we set? Are we on pace for our annual goal that we set? If we're not, how are we going to make up that revenue? What do we need to do? And so that's kind of where the business is currently right now, is trying to tighten the screws and get even better about all of our systems.
Talking about that with Doug, how far out are you guys strategizing? Like, are you looking at next year? You're looking at 2 years, 5 years? How far out are you looking?
Oh, 10. So we're 10, 5, 3, 1.
Okay.
So, we have a 10-year goal, we have a 5-year goal, we have a 3-year goal, and then we have this year's goal. And, and then we break it down per quarter. And then within the quarter are like our major rocks, like the big things that are going to drive the revenue and produce that. And then the other things that support that. And then that's kind of how, and then we organize, how we're going to take it off. And that is always evolving and changing too. So I think that's important for anybody who's scaling a business. We used to have an old saying back in the gym business day, which is open to change as we grow. And yeah, the plans that we have set right now, they may kind of mold. For example, when we first started really generating good revenue, one of the biggest ways that we produced revenue was collaborating and being on other podcasts, was having people like you on the show. We go on your show, and then meeting with all these other podcasts, and we would need, and I had it down to a science where it's like, okay, if we get on 8 other podcasts that are relatively close to our size, we will generate, $50,000 to $60,000 of revenue. Like that was,
Wow, and you had those metrics?
yeah. So
Wow.
and that was just over time putting that together. And because again, I'm the numbers guy, I track all that stuff and pay attention to it. And so then I would come to the guys and say, okay, this is our formula for success. And then I could lean on Katrina. Her job was to book us, keep us moving. And that we were on the hustle, man. And that's back when we used to fly into LA and we'd do like 12, 13 podcasts in a week. And we'd be trying to collaborate as much as we can, because I knew that if we did 6 to 8 podcasts every single month, it would generate about that much revenue. If we did beyond that, or we got a big podcast that we collaborate with, it could push that number higher. Well, over time, that's completely changed. Now, and that was before we had a marketing team, and we weren't even capturing emails when we first started this business. So when we first started, the podcast was the top of the funnel. The program sales and our shitty website was the only way that we pretty much generated revenue. So new people listening, some of those people hopefully go to the website, some of those people hopefully buy, that generates X amount of dollars. That was the gist of the entire business, where the main thing that would drive that $50,000 to $60,000 would be us pushing more podcast episodes. Well, once we built up enough revenue, and then we got to a point where we could hire a marketing team and outsource all of our Facebook ads, all of our emails and our email marketing and our Instagram ads. Once we could outsource that, that would hopefully one day start to generate revenue. Well, one day came about a year ago when it actually surpassed what the podcast was producing. And now it's 3x what the podcast produces. So MAPS Fitness Products, which is our online, program, email marketing side of the business, is technically, from a dollar perspective, bigger and more powerful than the podcast.
Wow.
So and that's why too, when we first built the business and we had the vision of Mind Pump Media, is we'd be this media company that has all these different mediums, and all these mediums will be almost like their own businesses within themselves. And the main one that gave us traction, that built the first initial bit of revenue, was the podcast. The podcast is what we were known for. It's what we're still known for. I mean, if you interview me, people ask all about the podcast, but really the podcast doesn't generate nowhere near as much revenue as what the email marketing campaigns do and what sponsorship and partnerships do now.
And like you said, you didn't take much money out of that. It was more of just establishing a base and kind of creating and building those relationships with your listeners.
Absolutely. And that's kind of how everything is too. It's really designed to support like the YouTube channel. I say it's like a whole, but it still drives thousands of people to the website, right? It's all a numbers game. Like, and now that we have like a really good, robust website that looks good, like, I mean, we were operating, I don't know how long you go back into listening to Mind Pump, but it wasn't that long ago. Our website was pretty whack. We and I talk about this a lot to people. This was an internal fight, not with the owners, but with one of our guys. And he was always like, Adam, I can't get partnerships with big companies if our website looks shitty like this and cheesy. Nobody was and I'm like, don't worry, man, we're gonna get there. We'll get there. And I always used to use the analogy of I grew up in the Fast and Furious days, and so I had like a rice rocket car, right? I had the Fast and the Furious Acura Integra, and so did my buddy. And we both were kids, and we spent all of our money on these cars. And I put all of my money into the engine. He put all of his money into the way it looked. And when it came to push, came to shove, and it came to the quarter mile, my shit chewed him up and spit him out all day. When it came to pulling up in the parking lot, all the girls looked at his car. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about how I performed. Well, I give that same analogy with a business. Like, I don't give a shit what everybody else thinks about my company. I give a shit about how it performs. And so all of our time, our money investment was in building a machine and building a structure that would support potentially millions of people coming through one day. And so that's where all of our energy and focus is, not on how we look. Now we're starting to dress ourselves up, which is funny because now we're getting the cred. And now people are, oh man, Mind Pump's so big. Oh, they blew up. Oh, all this shit like that.
Yeah.
No, we just got to a point where it made sense to go drop, $30,000 on a website. It made sense to go hire 4 people that handle this project. It made sense to start pumping thousands of dollars into this. It didn't make sense when we were first proving the model and first building our, Tim Ferriss talks about your first 1,000 tribe, right? Like that, to me, that's where the real secret sauce in building a successful business is getting those first 1,000 people that would do anything for you. You get 1,000 people that just absolutely love you and would do anything to support you. You could build almost anything off of that. And that, to me, is where the gold, where the secret sauce is in any business. And anybody who's built anything of real magnitude will tell you that it was built off the backs of those first 1,000 ridiculous fans that would do anything. And that's when we knew it was time to monetize this business. When we first started, we didn't sell anything. We went a whole year of giving free everything. We did over 200 episodes on our podcast before we tried to sell anything. And we had product to sell. We didn't. And that was because we knew we wanted to wait until we were getting so much feedback that people were trying to give us money. So we used to get DMs and emails every day. People going like, how do I support this cause? Like, oh my God, you've changed my life. You helped my mom. You helped my relationship. We were helping so many people that people were wanting to give us money and trying to convince us to turn on a Patreon. And then we finally go, okay, it's time now. Or this is getting ridiculous. I'm starting to get tons of daily emails or messages in my inbox of people trying to give us money for nothing. Now it's time to introduce a product. And so this is what I try and teach people that are trying to build something of similar magnitude is like, start with that. Like, lead with trying to deliver so much value to the people paying attention to you that if you sold them anything, it wouldn't matter because you've already gave them so much value that asking for $20 or $100 is not a big deal to them. To them,
like they feel like they're already in debt to you.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened when we dropped the program, and hundreds were sold. At least half of those people were like, I'm already following another program, or I do CrossFit, or I do this. And I just wanted to support, and I will continue to support for as long as Mind Pump is in business. Whatever you guys do, I'm behind you guys 100%. And that was when we knew, like, okay, now we've got our legitimate, this is a real business. Now let's build on top of this. And that's what we've been doing now for the last couple of years, is refining all that shit. But that, to me, you don't have a business, in my opinion, until you really have that, until you have so much value to give to people that they're willing to give you money because you've already added so much value to their life.
And I guess there's that misnomer in social media, especially with Instagram, where people are use those following bots just to get followers to kind of inflate their account versus having true followers
Oh,
and groupies in a sense.
I scoff at all that every time someone talks. If you were to dissect our business, right, and we were to break down like dollar for dollar, like where revenue is generated, and we went at YouTube, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, or the email marketing, the advertising, the podcast sales, and like we were to dissect all that money, the percent of revenue that's generated from fucking Instagram and having Instagram volume followers is like, it's nothing. It wouldn't pay for our cheapest employee. It wouldn't pay for it. It's so like the conversion rate from Facebook, from Instagram is so awful that it's such a, and that's why we were so adamant about not advertising and trying to sell our own shit, because we think it does more harm than good to the business. We think trying to push our product or sell things on Instagram does more harm than it does good. So when I see these people who have massive followings, I was just talking about this on the podcast the other day. It cracks me up. It's one of my buddies too. So, and I would tell him to his face. So I don't feel like I'm talking shit. Like he's got over 250,000 followers, and he plays the whole Instagram game and does all the shirtless selfies to get attention and traction, and then his stories, and he's pitching his products, and he's trying to sell his supplements and stuff. And I know all the conversion rates of that because I've tracked it in my own business, so I know how little money. And then the thing to do on Instagram is to show people how successful you are. So you show your cool car you're driving.
Yeah.
You show yourself shipping off all your supplements and shipping your t-shirts. And what I know is, which by the way, we didn't even talk about that side of this business. What I know is that side of our house, that's how non-existent is to me, is that we have an apparel line. We have t-shirts we have a person that's in charge of shipping every single day. That's their job. And I don't talk about it because it's insignificant to the business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the time to show people that you're sending out product on Instagram, you ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact, because as soon as you are doing anything at all with it, right away, you're like, this is taking way too much of my time to scale this business. So I need to hire some minimum wage person to handle it full time, just so it like makes me a couple bucks so I can go focus on the things that really make this business money. So when I see these guys flaunting like they are selling all kinds of product, and as they're, pushing their cart to the shipping station and like, oh, thanks for your support, love you guys. It's like, dude, that you're not doing anything if you're still shipping your products. And that again too is another fleeting business that for some reason everybody thinks is a good idea, of get a bunch of followers, buy apparel from China, throw your fucking fake ass logo on it and sell it for double the price. Like,
be a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, dude, like that's not going to last. That's not a real business. Like that's a hustle for a little while. Like you're one step above the guy who's selling dime bags on the corner. Like that's literally the difference. Like you're not that much. One's illegal, one's legal, but you're not like doing big things by flipping t-shirts all day long. It's not a real business. And I know that offends a lot of people that are probably listening, and I too. And I think when I speak about it, I want people to know that I'm not hating. I too fell in that category. I too was 25 at one day, and I too thought I was going to I have 3, by the way. Okay. 3 failed t-shirt lines I thought I was going to launch. So when I speak about that and I talk shit, it's also talking shit about myself. It's not
experience.
It's not me pointing the finger and saying, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. It's me going, I was an idiot too. I learned my lesson, and I'm here to try and share and help you guys out that don't follow in that path. That's not the direction. Let me save you the time, effort, and the lost money that I already went through trying it the hard way, thinking that I too was going to build a lifestyle brand off of my following. Like, nah, it don't work that way.
So talking about the fitness industry as a whole, what are your thoughts on the current landscape of the fitness industry, with especially like F45 now blowing up, I guess is the latest out there?
Yeah, we just had a cool interview with the guys who talked about the guy who created F45, and I don't know if you heard that interview or not, but I didn't know this. He enlightened me on the guy who created F45 was the guy who trained Wolverine, I believe. Is that right, Doug?
Wow.
I think he trained Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, right?
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, so he trained Hugh Jackman for X-Men, and I don't remember which one it was, but that's what he did. Now, his workout got popular because he trained Hugh Jackman. Somebody approached him, a businessman approached him and said, we've got to build a little gym around this. And they did, and they totally manipulated the program and changed it to be more, group class oriented and make sense to load more people so they could sell. So it started off as, Hugh Jackman's workout to get ripped type of deal that this trainer was doing. He partnered with somebody who then molded it and changed it into something completely different, and just shows you how great and how important branding and marketing is.
Yeah.
Space, you could take a product, completely twist it around, manipulate the fuck out of it, and sell it to millions of people, and they're all going to get bought in. But as far as my opinion on those things, I mean, I'm the guy who's on the show that everybody hates that says, I wish group training would fucking die. And, and again, okay, so for those people that I probably have already offended 10 times, if they're still listening, I too, okay, taught group classes. I taught boot camps. I ran Orange Theory. I did all that shit. And the thing that why I say I wish it would die is because if I'm completely honest with myself and I look back at all the clients that have gone through those group training classes, and I ask myself, how many of those people did I really fundamentally change and really help forever? Not for the 6 weeks they followed the class and starved their bodies and busted their ass in there. Not that. How many people did I teach and pass on new good behaviors that they forever did for the rest of their life that fundamentally changed and helped their life forever? Zero. The class setting is just awful for that, because working out and fitness and health is so personalized. It's so personalized that I've never trained two of the same people, and I've trained thousands. I've never had two people, even if they had the same age, same goal, same everything. There's enough different about them that the diet had to be different, the workout routine had to be different, the everything had to be different.
They don't all need to be doing snatches.
Yes. And so these classes, I just think, perpetuate the problem, which what I see is a breakdown in movement. We have poor mechanics. It attracts the wrong person. So the average person that goes to a boot camp class, an F45 class, or an Orange Theory class typically are type A go-getter personalities. They love the grind. We call them cortisol junkies because they love that spike. You will argue with one all day long if you try and challenge them, because you know what they'll tell you? I don't care what you say, Adam. When I get done with that class, I feel amazing. I feel great. Well, of course you do. You know why? Because it takes that for you to get that spike of adrenaline and cortisol, because you're already running on high all day long. You don't sleep very well. You got a stressful work life, you got a stressful home life, and then you also now have a stressful workout life. And the body doesn't know the difference between all these different stressors. So what ends up happening is it revolts. And it says, it goes into survival mode and it tries to survive, because it's registering. It don't know the difference if it's a lion jumping out of a bush or it's just you hammering the fuck out of it all the time. It freaks out and it adapts.
Fight or flight.
That's right. Fight or flight happens. And what happens hormonally inside, a lot of people don't understand. And it's not conducive to you losing body fat. And so that's why so many people get stuck in this rut of not seeing the results, but yet hammering away at themselves and dieting hard. Is they're just hammering their body and hammering their CNS with stress so much that they're not working with their body. And what they need to do is they need to learn to kind of pull back a little bit. And that's not to say that intensity isn't a valuable tool. It's a very valuable tool when applied correctly. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a class setting, you can't guarantee that you're applying that correctly to everybody in the class. In fact, like I said, majority of the people that are attracted to that are the wrong people. Those are the people that probably need more yoga, walking, and meditation in their life. And the people that probably need more intensity and need those classes are too busy doing yoga and meditation.
And I guess I had a great conversation with Jim from OPEX Fitness, their CEO, and their approach to this whole personalized fitness, I think, is really rewarding for people, because they're really getting down to each individual's needs and kind of improving them as an individual, as opposed to everybody jumping into a CrossFit class and doing whatever's written on the board that day by their coach.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with their company. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. So James Fitzgerald, who was one of the original games champions from CrossFit, was part of OPT back in the day. So they've kind of formed this gym called OPEX Fitness, and it's more of, they've kind of coined it personalized fitness training.
Okay.
So you kind of come in, meet with a coach, kind of go through what your goals and ambitions are, and they kind of lay out an entire plan for you. And every day you come to the gym, you have your own workout. It's not templated. It's strictly for what your needs are and what your goals are. And you go around the gym and you do your workouts, and there's coaches there that are there to help you and give you tips and help you along the way with.
That's interesting. Yeah, see, I like that. And here's the thing too, like I think I'm excited about the fitness industry as a whole because even though I know that, diabetes and cancer and all these other things are in depression and suicide and everything's on a rise. So I know all that's bad and that can sound gloomy, but I do think that we are becoming a smarter and smarter consumer. And I think that mediums like podcasting allows this. It allows for great conversation and dialogue with this instead of it just like me being a guy who's saying like, group classes should die. And then that's all you get. Like you get my explanation. It's not like, I think it's just bad for people. Obviously somebody going to a group class is better than the guy sitting on the couch eating a tub of ice cream, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously. But, if we are talking about, ideal ways to get healthy and in shape, I think there's much better ways. And I think that these conversations are starting to be had a lot more. I mean, look at the shift in CrossFit. CrossFit is having to respond.
Oh man, that's a big paradigm shift that they're going to be facing
Right?
a long uphill battle to. I mean, I was just watching some of their YouTube videos the other day, and they've gone so far away from forging elite fitness to now like showing people in their living rooms with like a fertilizer bag doing lunges and squats, and it's just so different from what they built this empire on.
Right. And it's them trying to backpedal and figure out how to appease. We got into a debate, like we always get into debates with CrossFit people that are drinking Kool-Aid, right? And they're like having this debate, like, I run a CrossFit facility and this is how we assess and this is how I coach and he's like he's rattling off and we let him go. Like you could tell he was all fired up to defend CrossFit. And we go, bro, it sounds like you're an incredible coach. It sounds like you're an incredible trainer. And it sounds like you're not teaching CrossFit. It sounds like you're doing what we call personal training. You're individualizing your class to a much further degree than this thing was built. And that's the bone we have to pick. It's not with the brand CrossFit. I ain't got a problem with CrossFit, the brand. It's the group training class, high intensity, complex movements done in a circuit with a majority of people that shouldn't be doing. That's what the fuck I have a problem with. Now, since so many injuries have happened and we've seen such a backlash, you've seen the cream rise to the top, as Glassman would say, and that's what's happened. And good coaches are now customizing and modifying and saying, you're not ready for that snatch. Let's have you do this. And hey, that's good. That's great training. But the more you do of that and the further you bring that, the closer you are to real personal training and no longer CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I don't got a bone to pick with that. Like I don't. Like that's what needs to happen if it's gonna stay around and it's still gonna be a thing 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. It will have to, because the word's out. Enough people have been hurt from it or know somebody who's been hurt from it or not. I mean, I just got a DM the other day about someone got rhabdo. Like I didn't even know what rhabdo was 15 years ago. 15 years ago as a trainer, I didn't even know what rhabdo was until CrossFit came on the scene. Now it's like I hear about it all the time, and it's always from somebody doing CrossFit. You just saw, I don't know if you saw Dana Lynn Bailey, who got rhabdo from doing a CrossFit workout. You're talking about an experienced athlete who decides that she's going to go over and do a CrossFit workout and ends up getting rhabdo. It's like, I mean, it's people, there's enough people now aware that it's probably not the most ideal way of training. And so people are, if you have a CrossFit box or you are drinking the Kool-Aid, you're also going, okay, I need to kind of figure this out. And we're seeing that. And I'm happy with that. Like I'm not out to like crush the business or hope it dies. It's like, I want to see people get helped, and I want to see people get results, and I want to see people keep those results for the rest of their life because they've learned good behaviors and they've learned like how to eat properly, how to train properly, not that they've proven to themselves they could kick their own ass for 6 weeks or 12 weeks. Like to me, anybody could do that. And that's why on Mind Pump, like we speak so much to the psychological part, because that was the stuff that really was the game changer for clients. It wasn't all of my nutritional knowledge. It wasn't all of my, human physiology. It wasn't all of that I dropped on my client that made them into badasses. It was when I could get into their brain and figure out what made them tick and motivated or insecure or what they really wanted or needed for themselves. And I could help them tap into that and then help teach them good behaviors that they could slowly build upon day over day, week over week, year over year. That was the shit that like changed clients forever. And that's the stuff that like, and I think that if, as a whole, I like to think that the message is happening. I mean, that was when we got into Mind Pump. That was the big mission. The big mission was literally to shift and change this fitness industry for the better. We believe that it was part of the problem when we entered it, and we hope when we leave it that it's a resolution to the problem. And I like to think that, you know, we're making little splashes right now. We're not making massive waves, I think. Or at least I don't think we are. I think we're starting to make some noise, and I'm starting to see more and more people, I think, putting out really good information.
Yeah. So kind of close this up a little bit. I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Kind of rapid fire questions. So let's say you, Doug, Sal, and Justin are kind of in a crunch in terms of a business enigma that you guys are facing. And you can make one phone call to anybody to kind of help you, mentor you along the way to get through this. Who are you guys calling?
Well, each of us would probably call someone different. It would probably be me who would do that. And depending on what I'm having a problem with, there's a handful of people I would reach out to. In that list would probably be people like Tom Bilyeu, Jordan Harbinger, and Mike Matthews would probably be my top. Well, those are the 3 I talk to on the most regular about my business. So if it's podcasting related, Jordan Harbinger is one of the best at it, I think, in my opinion. He's been in the industry the longest, runs an incredibly efficient business, intelligent, awesome dude, and good friend. Tom Bilyeu, when it comes to scaling. So anything to do with talking about lots of people, staffing, future, like I'm always challenging him on, 5 years from now, like what does this all look like? And, how are we positioning ourselves today to be successful 5-10 years from now? And then Mike Matthews, straight numbers crunching and internet marketing guy. So probably one of the most underrated people in our space when it comes to business. Like you want to talk to a brilliant business mind who crushes it financially, but doesn't brag about it or talk about it. Mike Matthews.
All right, right, taking that name down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mike's is dope, and also a very good friend. So those 3 are probably the people I talk to the most. Although I do communicate with a lot of the other guys. Anybody who you've met on the show, anybody that has got any business sense whatsoever, I try and keep a pretty regular conversation going. Those 3 guys I talk to on a very regular basis, and for probably the reasons I just told you. So I would call one of those 3.
All right, and let's say Jim from Arkansas, trainer, kind of struggling in his own little business there, trying to, I guess, turn his hobby into more of a business as a trainer. And he gets asked the same question. He says, I'm going to call Adam from Mind Pump. He was kind of in the same place I was at one time. What kind of advice would you give him?
So I'll stick with how we started this conversation. What made me good at what I did, what I pride myself on the most, I would say, is if you worked for me at one point, and you were in the fitness space, you made the most money working for me than you ever did anywhere else. And that was because I instilled these types of behaviors. And one of the things that will take you a really long way is tracking the numbers that I said, is finding out how many people you need to talk to book X amount of appointments, to close X amount of appointments at X amount of dollars, and figure out what that number is for you. And then whatever that is, it doesn't matter if it's really low, it doesn't matter. Like you just need to know where it's at. And then from there, you set daily goals on people you talk to. And then I'll take that one step further, because I didn't share it with you, and I do share this when I talk about this, is I used to buy for all of my trainers a little, $1.99 journal from CVS, those little ones that we all filled out when we were in kindergarten or whatever. And I would tell them to meet, and every trainer had different goals. So depending on if you had a large financial goal, you wanted to make $10,000 or you wanted to make $5,000, it would be different on how many people I would set your goal for. But if you are setting a goal to meet X amount of people, to make X amount of appointments, to make X amount of deals, well, we need to distill that down to how many people you need to meet every day. So let's say your goal is to meet 5 new people every single day. Okay. So then what the next step to that is for you actually to journal it. And what I teach trainers that don't like sales and are nervous about trying to close people is don't try and sell anything. I want you to meet 5 people today, and I want you to learn one thing about them, their name and then one thing about them. After you learn their name and one thing about them, as soon as you do that off the floor, or if you're out prospecting out of the gym, doesn't matter. As soon as you're done with that, walk to your journal, write their name down and the one thing about them. If you do that, what's kind of nice, the way the brain works is, 1, you'll remember it because you just had the conversation with them. 2, you'll go down and you'll write it down again, which will really solidify it in your brain. And then 3, the next time that you see them, even if you forgot if that was Jim who played tennis or that was Jim the accountant, you'll be able to go back to your book and look and go like, oh, that's Jim the accountant. Okay, cool. So now when I walk up to Jim, I can ask him a question related to something that I learned about him last time. You'll blow people away when you do this. Has nothing to do with sales. You're not trying to sell training yet. You're not doing anything. All you're learning to do is become the mayor of your gym and become the man that everybody likes because you remember their name and you remember something about them. After you do that just 2 or 3 times to the same person, watch how easy of a transition is from that to then saying, hey, Jim, I noticed the other day you're always on the elliptical when you come in here. Like, what's your goals? And he goes, oh, well, I'm trying to lose a little bit of body fat before summer and I want to get back into my tennis shape. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, oh, like, are you doing any sort of mobility work or have you had anybody work on strength training or what does your exercise program look like? Oh, well, I kind of just do the elliptical. Like, oh man, hey, if you have time on next Tuesday, I actually have some free time where I'm allowed to take free appointments on. I'd love to show you a few things if you're free. Would you like to do that?
Sold.
Right. Tell me who's going to say no to that. Right.
You can't say no to free when it gets approached that way.
Exactly. And especially when you've done a good job of meeting the person and showing that you care. Like I live by the motto that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So lead with that. Lead with caring. Lead with wanting to learn about people. Lead with being genuine. Figure things out about people. Then what's nice is after you've done that 2 or 3 times, the door will open. It'll be very easy on the transition from there to then booking those people. Then when you book them, that's where you work on your sales presentation. But if you're a bad salesperson, even the worst salesperson eventually finds that person who already wanted personal training anyways. So it just means I only got to book 5 people and maybe you got to book 20 people. But the work is there and the numbers are there. And guess what happens when you have to book 20? You get more practice and you get better and you get better and you get better and keep track of your numbers and improve upon them. And then what you can do is you can start to reach out to the people that are better at that craft. Like when I started in sales, I wasn't great, but I definitely knew who the great ones were inside my gym. And you bet your ass that every time I had opportunity, I would be sitting down and I'd be talking to them and learning how they prezo and listening to them present personal training and trying to sharpen my sword because I knew I was practicing all the time because I wasn't afraid to get people in front of me, even if I failed, because eventually I would start to piece this together. So if I can give a trainer a single thing that could improve your business, in fact, if I can give you a single thing that would almost guarantee you'll be successful at what you do, is to map that out, track your numbers, set a goal for yourself, work it backwards. Once you've done it for an entire month, you have a pretty good idea of what your show percentage is, what your close percentage is, and what your average dollar is, and then give yourself a realistic goal. Don't do something stupid like, oh, I want to make myself $100,000 in the first month, and you can't close more than 2% of the people. Stretch yourself every month, but stretch yourself just enough that it's obtainable if you put the work in. If you know it's hard for you to talk to 25 people every single day because it's not realistic and you don't have the gumption or you don't have a gym that's big enough to even talk to 25 people, start with 5 or start with 7, but set a goal and then hit that goal and then build upon that goal and you watch your business grow.
Nice. And on that note, that's a wrap. Thank you very much for joining me on FitBiz Talk and dropping all this knowledge, Adam.
Cool. Good time, man.
Thank you again for listening to the show. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Adam Schafer. If you want to see what Adam's up to, you can find him on Instagram at MindPumpAdam. If you want to see what Mind Pump's up to, you can look up at Mind Pump Media, or you can go to mindpumpmedia.com and just see the unlimited amount of resources these guys have. If you're looking for programming, if you're looking for content, that is the place to go. Next week, we have AJ Roberts on the show. He's a product of Westside Barbell. world record holder, and is now the Chief Revenue Officer of Genesis Digital, who are the creators of Webinar Jam and Kartra. But I have him on the show because he is one of the most sought after speakers in the fitness industry to talk about business. So please stay tuned for next week's episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit us up on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review or subscribe to the podcast. So until next week, I'm Sebastiano Mangiafico, and this is FitBiz Talk.